You are listening to Proof Text, a Glossa House podcast exploring Scripture and all things related to it. New episodes are released daily. For more information, check out glossahouse.com and subscribe to our channels on Spotify and YouTube. Welcome and enjoy.
Narnia, 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 awake, love, think, speak, be walking trees, be talking beasts, be divine waters.
Welcome to the Christ and Classics podcast, where we discuss the classics in light of the Christ. My name is Devin Wilkins, and I'm joined, as always, with the illustrious Colton Moore. Colton, how are you?
Doing well. Currently in a different setting. You're in the office, and I guess I'm like tucked away up in an upstairs room in a local coffee shop.
Nice. Today we're discussing The Magician's Nephew, Book 6 in the Chronicles of Narnia.
And once again, despite what the publishers will tell you, they put this first due to its chronology, I guess, coming first in the history of Narnia, the world Narnia. But
Don't read his historical Bible reading plans and don't read the Chronicles of Narnia in their historical chronology either. Is that what you're saying?
No. I'm saying that Lewis intended us to read The Magician's Nephew sixth in the order of the Narnian Chronicles. That's not to say there isn't a value in reading Narnia chronologically. I think there could be a real value in that, trying to piece together all these different aspects in a linear fashion. In a similar way, there's a certain value that one gains from chronological Bible reading plans. I don't think that's the intended way to read, particularly the Old Testament, and even the New Testament too, because there's meaning in the structure of the scriptures. In the same way, there's meaning itself in the structure of the Narnian Chronicles.
Right. So you would prefer that people read the Tanakh as opposed to the Bible in a year?
Well, that's a different question, because there are two other structures of the Old Testament that are not chronological, which is one, the Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh, the Torah, the prophets, and the writings. And then there's what we typically have in our English Bibles, which follows the Septuagint pattern, the Greek translation of that. It'd be similar to saying, well, we ought to read the Bible chronologically always. And what that would mean for the New Testament is that we would start with the epistles, and the Gospels would be very last. But by front-loading the Gospels at the very beginning of the New Testament, the New Covenant, we center our focus on the person and the work and the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, which then colors everything going forward. In fact, I think one of our Old Testament professors would say that the epistles are like a commentary back on the Gospels, even though the epistles were written before the Gospels were written. So
they were written after the Gospels were lived.
Yeah. So, Magician's Nephew, sixth in the series.
Although the last book to be completed, as I understand it.
Yeah, that was interesting. I think Michael Ward brought that to my attention when we met with him a few weeks ago for the first time.
Yeah.
So
interesante.
Well, Devin, kick us off with a summary, and I'll try to choose one of these questions that I've got floating around in my head that we'll run with.
Looking forward to it. Yeah. So we've got new characters, perhaps. We have Digory, a little boy, and Polly, a little girl. They're neighbors. And they meet when Digory comes to stay with his uncle and aunt Uncle Andrew and Aunt Letty, I think.
Mhm.
And because his mother is sickly and his father's away. Do you remember where his father is?
India.
There it is. So they decide that they're going to go exploring because they live in row houses, and they decide that if they go up into the attic, maybe they can go across all the houses and it'd be a real adventure. And they stumble upon actually Uncle Andrew's secret study, which is, long story short, he captures them and, tricks Polly into going into a secret world, a magical world, and by means of a ring, letting her touch it. And he knows that will happen. But he's a beastly fellow. He does not, he doesn't care for other people at all. He doesn't seem to care for his sister, Digory's mother, or his other sister, Aunt Letty. He's just self-focused and wants to use his nephew and his nephew's friend, Polly, as pawns in an experiment. He's a low-ranking magician. And anyhow, they end up going to what is called the Wood Between the Worlds, and eventually find their way into there's a bunch of pools, and if you wear a certain ring, when you go into a certain pool, it'll take you into a certain world, another world. And so they first go to Charn, a dying world, and all the people there are kind of, I was going to say frozen. They're not stone, but they're something like that, like wax people or something.
Yep.
And I got to believe that Digory can't help but, out of curiosity, heed this little poem that says, maybe you have it memorized, Colton. Do you have it memorized?
Oh. No, I don't.
Pull it up. Here it is. Let's see. Well, okay. Doesn't matter. There's a little poem that says basically something to the effect of ring this bell and to see what happens. And, if you don't, then you'll never know what you missed out on or something to that effect. And Polly says, let's not do that. But Digory says, let's do it. This is going to be great. And he kind of tricks her into doing this before they take off. And they awaken a witch, Queen Janis, who actually is a witch that we've met before. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, we've met, but Narnia hasn't met.
We've met.
Sense.
As readers who are reading this book in the 6th position, we've met her as the White Witch. And she goes with them out of that world, that dying world, to the Wood Between the Worlds, and then eventually hangs on to them and makes it her way into their world, planet Earth. And as a result, she wreaks some havoc. She bends Uncle Andrew to her will, and she doesn't have magic powers, but she's strong, very strong. And they decide eventually, skipping over a lot of details here, that they need to get her back. They need to get her out of there. But they accidentally take her, Uncle Andrew, a cab driver, and his horse, and the two of them. Is there anyone else? Okay, so all of them end up going back, and they end up eventually in a dark space. Their feet are on the ground, but they see nothing, absolutely nothing, till they start to see the dawn. They're talking, they're freaking out, and eventually what they behold is Aslan creating a new world. He's creating Narnia. And the words that Colton, that you read, are the first words we hear him speak. And what comes is, he sings Narnia into creation, into existence, and then speaks those words as something of a creation mandate. And then you have Narnia. You have Narnia coming into existence. And all the while, one of Digory's chief concerns is his mother. She is dying, and he loves her so much that he's attempting to save her life. And so Aslan, after he's created everything, he tells Digory, you can save, well, does he say you can save your mother? Anyway, he tells him, you need to go and go to over this mountain and secure an apple from this incredible tree, very reminiscent of the tree of life in paradise.
Mm-hmm.
And so he goes with the help of Fledge, a new that's my phone here, business phone. I'll keep talking. Business must go on. But somebody picked up.
Fledge is Strawberry. Fledge is the cabbie's old horse that Aslan has turned into a Narnian talking horse and has
a flying horse.
given him wings. The father of all flying horses in Narnia, he says.
That's right. So he takes Digory as well as Polly, who decides that she wants to come along, to that tree. And they go, and they're met there at the tree after he's picked an apple. They met with the witch. She somehow made her way there, and she does her darndest to tempt Digory to go ahead and eat of the tree of life himself, become immortal, and be the king with her as queen of Narnia and rule. And he's actually kind of tempted, at least tempted to believe her lies, not tempted because he wants to be king or wants her to be queen, but he's reminded, though, once she's willing to throw Polly under the bus of how beastly she is, and they escape quickly, get back to Aslan, and in the end, Aslan is well on its way to Narnia is well on its way to the Narnia we've always known, and in the end, Uncle Andrew, there's some mercy shown to his character, interestingly, but the big thing is, in the end, Digory's Aslan does show mercy on Digory's mother, and she is spared. She's not given eternal life, but her health is restored. And
even Aslan says that at the end, if Digory would have gotten one of those immortal apples and given it to his mother, sure, she would have lived forever, but she would have been eternally miserable, such that it would have been better for her to die.
Yeah.
And she would have wished that she would die rather than go on living eternally in misery. And that's why one reason why the witch is so beastly, if you will, because she realizes how miserable she is and how miserable she will be having eaten the apple.
And when she eats the apple, it looks like blood coming out of her mouth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's nasty. Yeah. And as a result, when you meet the witch down the road, or further up the road, I suppose, in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, she's pale white, and everything around her is deathly white snow, and there's not vitality in the eternal life that she has taken for herself.
Yeah, there are there are so many themes that we could discuss. A few major ones that we could center a question around, such as why a magician here, and is there any correlation between the magician we see on the island of the Dufflepuds in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader? What about the Queen here? Queen Janis and the Queen of the Underland. Any intentional correlation there? What I want to ask is it's not exactly what I texted you earlier, Devin, but what I texted you earlier will be woven into it. I'm certain. So here's my question: because the book is named The Magician's Nephew, like that's the title of the book, and knowing what we know about titles of books, usually it's going to be your main topic, main focus, main idea, main character of a book. And given that The Magician's Nephew is Digory, why is Digory the main character? What about Digory? What does he do? What does he represent in The Magician's Nephew? And as The Magician's Nephew, that makes him the star of the show, if you will.
Yeah.
Because Lewis could have said he could have created a title about like the creation of Narnia or Narnia's beginnings, but it's not. It's The Magician's Nephew. Why Digory? What's important about Digory? And hopefully we can bring in some thoughts of Digory's appearance in The Magician, in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe as the professor. And
what?
So that's my question. Michael Ward has argued that the theme around which the theme that drives the book is love. But let's talk about Digory first. Why Digory? What's important about him?
Sure.
Where does he start and where does he end? And how does he unite the book?
Yeah. Well, along those lines, Colton, one thing I've realized, I believe in I don't think there's an exception here. There's always a child character who is transformed from selfish, they've got bickering, that sort of thing. They transform from that to something more whole, something more mature, not adults, but but mature in a Narnian sense. Trying to think of any exceptions to that so far, because even here, Digory and Polly, they squabble, over the bell, and
which was Digory's fault, by the way.
Digory's fault. And
we first see Digory weeping, crying, with a dirty face, for good reason. His mom's about to die, and his father's gone, and he's stuck with his aunt and his cruel uncle. He's got good reasons to be upset. And Polly's the one who's like poking fun at him, and we don't really see his vice, his foolishness, until we get to the scene where they're in Charn, and he's tempted to ring the bell. Which, by the way, here's the poem I found. Yep. Make your make your choice, adventurous stranger. Strike the bell and bide the danger, or wonder till it drives you mad. What would have followed if you had? In Digory's foolishness, in his foolishness, he doesn't listen to the poem in its entirety. He just listens to that last part. What would have or wonder till it drives you mad. What would have followed if you had struck it? Like, well, I don't want to live my whole life not knowing what would have happened, but he doesn't heed the first part, strike the bell and bide the danger.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same temptation that the witch gives him at the end, but he conquers her in the end. And so, like, we see his foolishness there, and Polly, rightfully so, gets on to him pretty hard. And he, like, pulls her away, holds her back, strikes it, ding. And right there, we're like, Digory, you're a little foolish kid, and you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Yeah, Digory is the source of the troubles in regards to Narnia, and also he brings those troubles into Earth. So, yeah, it's foolishness. Even, I guess you could say, sinful for him to go out and kind of indulge his curiosity. He didn't have the self-control that he needed. And he wronged Polly in the process, and actually ends up wronging a whole world.
All of Narnia. And Aslan reprimands and calls him out on it at the end after he's created the animals, and he's taken the animals 2 by 2, and those 2 animals each become the talking Narnians, and the other ones remain the dumb, non-speaking animals.
Right.
And he basically says, animals, here is the boy who brought the witch into Narnia. And so, like, right off the bat, we're thinking, like, Digory, this is the magician's nephew. This is what the book is about. And so, on the one hand, he is so tenderly concerned for his mother and consumed with a passion for her to be healed.
Right.
And when he soon figures out that Aslan is this majestic, powerful, magical lion that can speak it and sing into existence, he begins to trust this lion without really knowing much about him yet. But his chief thought is, what can I do to get my mother saved? How can I save my mother from death? And this lion can do it. I believe he can. And that's like, that struck me throughout the book, like thinking of Digory's love for his mother and
childlike faith.
Yes, which recurs again, and like, notice that it, like, the childlike faith isn't without warrant. He's got good reason to believe in Aslan. Like, it's not a blind faith. Like, true faith really isn't blind at all.
Yep.
The evidence upon which he's basing his faith is this lion sings, and he commands things to exist and to speak.
And when he speaks, everything trembles. He's very commanding.
And he's not. He seems powerful and dangerous, but not wicked.
Right.
Not like the witch. Not like the witch. And when Aslan gives him the task to go grab this apple, and he's met once again with the temptation of what would happen if he would eat the apple. Mm-hmm. It's not until the witch insults Polly. Basically, it says, and you and I can run off together, that he kind of comes to, mm-hmm. and makes his stand against the witch and conquers her in that regard.
Yeah, that's interesting, because he had made a choice for the witch before, in opposition to Polly, mm-hmm. and he's reaping the consequences of that. That's the plot of the book, and then when he's given the chance to do it again, he seems to have learned from his mistakes, um, especially when Polly speaks, or not when Polly speaks, but when the witch speaks of Polly, it awakens him to, I've made this mistake before and I'm not going to do it again. I indulged temptation and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to entrust myself to the instructions I've been given by Aslan.
Yeah, his second temptation with the witch and the apple is like a photo negative antithesis of his first temptation with the bell and the witch, where he's resisting Polly, holding her back, indulging in his curious temptation, which was foolish, which brought about the witch's reawakening from the spell and her entering into Narnia. And the second one is he's taking up now for Polly, resisting the temptation and standing up to the witch, which ultimately drives her away. And he goes back, and
it's kind of like Digory is a first Adam and a last Adam.
Yeah, like it's like he bit the apple, bit the metaphorical apple, the bell, and caused the serpent to enter into the world, caused the witch and evil to enter into Narnia, and then now he's standing up to her at the end and driving her away, and in the end becomes okay with his mother dying, like becomes at peace with the thought of, it's better for my mom to die than for her to live on forever with this apple. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the apple would really do, but Aslan tells me it will do so much harm eternally that it would be better for her to die.
Yeah.
And he's okay with that. And what does Aslan do? He gives her an apple. He gives him an apple, and it heals her.
First, he tells Digory to throw the apple, so that it, to plant it, basically throw it down to the ground and plant it. And that seems to me like a giving up of the hope that you went to go get, right? Wait, I'm throwing this. I was hoping that I would take this, and in the end, as you said, the fruit that fruit causes a tree to grow, and it's not exactly the same in potency in terms of eternal life, and so he can take the fruit of that tree back to his mother and save her from her current danger and enjoy, having a mother beyond a mere, how old is he? Probably something like
11, 12, 13. Yeah. So could we say that by centering, at least in this one sense, this one little layer of meaning, by centering the story upon Digory, we get an Adamic picture, a picture of the first Adam, and I like how you said the last Adam as well. Like perhaps Digory is an Adamic and Christ-like figure wrapped into one, who brings evil into the world and plays the integral role of protecting the world from that evil. Now, it's not a one-for-one parallel, but there is a layer of that there. Now,
maybe he's a David or something.
The question that you wanted to ask is related. Is love? If love, so like, well, first for everyone, Devin, why was your mind focused on the theme of love in The Magician's Nephew? Tell us all why that's the case, and then I'll roll with the question.
Yeah. Okay, so a lot of it spawns from Michael Ward's thesis that each of the books represents one of the 7 planets or the 7 heavens. And I decided, especially with the silver chair, to well, I didn't decide anything with the silver chair. I just noticed with the silver chair that everything lunar was hope. And I was struck by that. The hope in the book is tied to the planetary identity of the book. And so then I did the same thing last go around with the horse and his boy, and noticed the same thing, that everything hopeful was mercurial. As they, Aslan is playing the role of a Mercury, or at least enabling the mercurial character. That's driving the hope in the story, and he's there all along. And so again, I was thinking, all right, I'm looking for the Venus aspect in this book and how it's tied to hope in the novel. And admittedly, initially, I was thinking, I'm not sure that I see this. I'm several chapters in, and it might all be breaking down here. And so I'm really increasingly so on the lookout, and yet Narnia doesn't actually come into play until, I forget which chapter that is that you were just reading from, Colton. Is it 9?
Chapter 9.
Yeah, so Narnia doesn't come
2/3 of the way through, almost.
Right. And then all of a sudden, there are some hints beforehand, but all of a sudden the love themes begin to shout at you, or stand out on the page. And as you read with that opening line for this podcast, Colton, Narnia, love, and
Awake.
Then
Then
love. I guess consciousness is a prerequisite. Awake, love. And honestly, when I've read this book in the past, I've been distracted by the creation aspect. And not in a bad sense, but just I love that Aslan sings everything into existence, and these characters get a front row seat as to what's happening. But
which is interesting. This is like a little footnote there. In Tolkien's The Silmarillion, the entire cosmos, all the angels, and all the world of Arda comes into existence by the singing and the music of Iluvatar, the creator.
right.
And things like he talks about the music beginning to have being. Like, it's not just sounds anymore, but like the music itself becomes tangible things that become the creation. It's a really beautiful picture. Maybe we can read that in the future.
Maybe Tolkien stole that from Lewis.
Or vice versa.
Or they actually probably both got it from the medieval cosmology. I'm thinking of actually, hold on, Colton, I'm pull this up. This is 1901 when This Is My Father's World, the hymn.
Oh, yes.
Was written.
Yes.
I believe it's 1901. Is that right?
The music of the spheres.
Okay, don't hold me to that date. But anyhow, this is my Father's world, and to my listening ears all nature sings, and round me rings the music of the spheres. And he keeps going. This is my Father's world. I rest me in the thought of rocks and trees, of skies and seas, his hand and wonders wrought. And certainly there is medieval cosmology there, how the spheres, there are multiple spheres. You have Earth, and then you keep going out further and further into the fixed constellations and the heavens, and everything is before the fall rightly ordered, and everything works in perfect harmony in the spheres of existence, when everything is the loves are rightly ordered, everything is right, and that's disrupted with the fall. But you still have the fixed stars and things like that, and hence Lewis perhaps utilizing cosmology and also Tolkien.
Yeah. Well, you were saying that you in the past have gotten distracted in a good way by this creation scene, but this time around,
this time around, I'm paying a bit more attention to the theme of love, and like the themes that Venus might bring along, and so that's nurturing, love, even in a sense romance. So I enjoyed that. I always enjoy the creation element, but
what themes of love most stuck out most to you? 2 or 3?
Yeah, the first one is Digory's ongoing love for his mother, and the second would be there's the first king and queen of Narnia, the cabbie and his wife, and how they're beautified, and they seem to have a good relationship, as opposed to everything antithetical to the queen, or not the queen, the White Witch, Jadis, and Uncle Andrew says, or there's maybe it's the narrator hints that Uncle Andrew kind of is interested in possibly having some kind of romantic future with the White Witch, and the book even ends on saying that she's terrible, but she's a fine woman.
Interesting. So, okay, I've got a question. I've never read Lewis's The Four Loves, but I'm intrigued now because you've just mentioned a few different types of loves. So you've got one, this lustful eros, erotic love. You could call it probably. It's like a soft eros with in Uncle Andrew's fantasy of being with Jadis. One. You've got another kind of love where you have a son who deeply loves his mother and he wants her to live. Okay.
Parental.
Yeah. And then 3, you've got the
marriage.
Yeah, king and queen, marriage.
And then
is there another one? Is there another one?
Well, there's the love of the friends. It's actually Digory's love for Polly is what awakens him to save Narnia from the second fall.
Boom.
Yeah.
I'm just now like putting all that together in my head right now. That's beautiful. That's really wonderful. And man, and Aslan too. Whenever Digory tells Aslan first of his mother, Aslan is weeping, crying, and Lewis, the narrator, says something like something to the effect of, "It's as if Aslan loved Digory's mother more than he did." And
yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So let's just kind of wrap this together. So we got a couple different things going on here. Digory as the main character and the magician's nephew, and this theme of love here. Where do those two collide and meet in the character of Digory in the main thrust of the book? Digory and love.
Yeah. So Digory's got some relation to each of those uh, instances of love. So certainly his mother, obviously, he's learning throughout the text to sacrifice his own curiosities
Mm.
um, and yeah, maybe otherwise just temptations to in the interest of his mother, and the love for his mother overrides his own love for indulging. Um, he's related to his uncle, um, and he despises the twistedness that he sees in his uncle as well as Jadis. He's miserable with his uncle, living with him. And his mother is sick. And so you see a massive reversal where his uncle ends up being sick in the end and kind of living with his mom and dad and him in the country as kind of a shut-in, where his mom and dad are reunited, healthy, and Digory thrives in a whole house, and his uncle is, a shell of himself. And actually, let me just say this, my very favorite, this is off topic slightly, but my very favorite moment historically in this book is when Aslan creates the world, and they're talking animals, and Aslan himself is a singing and talking lion. And you have Uncle Andrew saying, animals can't talk, and he's, like plugging his ears, and he can't believe it because it doesn't fit with his maybe modernist understanding of the world. And strangely, he's the magician, which is odd, but he can't believe it. And as a result, he himself ceases to be able to hear the animals, the speaking animals. All he can hear is roaring.
He becomes what he already is, a beast.
Right. He becomes beastly, and meanwhile, the main character Digory becomes more and more truly human, truly Narnian, for that matter.
Yeah.
And then, of course, his relationship with Polly is restored and becomes more of a beautiful friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, he brings the cabbie and his wife to the country, or to Narnia, and they go from kind of a lowly estate, rough around the edges, to regal, royal, and honorable. And they play a part in ruling Narnia precisely, and maybe you can find this real quick, but Aslan says, because humans brought evil into Narnia, they will play a part in reconciling Narnia as well in the end. Hence, the children, they, Peter, Susan, Lucy, Edmund, they all play a massive role in
and then
the restoration.
You come to the 7th book right after reading this, the last battle,
Mm-hmm.
and you go back up to the northeast, so the northwestern corner, and no, that's good. That's good stuff, man. I think we should end it there. It's great.
You know what? I talked way too much. You don't have anything else to say?
No, you talked great. What you just golden mouth.
John Chrysostom? Is that who that is?
Yeah, his name is Chrysostom is golden mouth.
Yeah. I usually have a bad memory, but I'm glad I pulled that one out. Well done.
All right, man.
Wow. Yeah. I will hand it to Michael Ward. It's all there. And it does and I'm sure that I'm merely scratching the surface of this third level, but the third level actually illuminates the second and the first. The mere plot and the Christian analogy, those things are all the more amplified, and it's all the more rich because of this third level. Like, look, this is the stream I'm following, and as before, I'm jazzed about reading The Last Battle in Light of. Which one is it?
Wait, in light of what?
In which book it is, or in which planet The Last Battle represents? Do you remember? Is it Saturn?
I think so. That sounds right. We talked about Saturn. Yeah. Right?
Hold on, I'm going to tell you. We're going to find out. You can go to Planet Narnia's website. It has its own website, which is great. And then you don't have to read the whole thing necessarily, although we would commend that. But you can go to Planet Narnia tab, the Planet Narnia tab within Planet Narnia, the website, and then on the right side it says the Seven Heavens. And I do believe, so Luna is the silver chair, Mercury is the horse and his boy, Venus is the magician's nephew, Sol is Voyage of the Dawn Treader, Mars is Prince Caspian, Jupiter is Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, so Saturn is the final book. Yeah. And as we prepare to read, I'm just going to go there if I can. Yeah, here we go. You can click Saturn, and it'll give you a brief synopsis. The worst planet, the one whose influence could most easily go bad. It was liable to cause sickness, old age, ugliness, disaster, melancholy, and death.
Yeah, this is definitely like the last battle is like definitely. It seems like the bleakest time in Narnia. I at least when I read it, it feels like it's worse than Under the White Witch, in a sense.
Listen to this. If received right, however, this influence might bring about godly sorrow, penitential wisdom, and contemplative insight. Mythological characters, the Father of Time, with his scythe and hourglass. It's based, lead is the Saturnine metal, both because of its heaviness and because of its dull gray color. And he consumes his children, Saturn does, only to disgorge them later. Let's see. Dante connects the seven planets with the seven liberal arts. Saturn he connects with astronomy. In the Bible, the prophet Amos speaks against the people for worshiping Saturn instead of the god who made the Pleiades and Orion. So
that's next week. Last battle. So our plan going forward is we're gonna finish with the last battle. Mm-hmm. We're gonna have an episode where Devin and I reflect on some of our main takeaways from rereading the Chronicles, and then we're gonna have another episode on Lewis with our friend Keith Kresge on Lewis's short but fantastic little essay called "The Necessity of Chivalry." And I'd like to connect that essay with some of the characters throughout the Chronicles of Narnia. And then we'll move on from Lewis. And I think we're debating on whether or not to read Plato's Meno. But I've also been kind of thinking about it'd be nice to get back to the Odyssey just to give Homer his due. But
the Meno's a lot shorter. We could do both.
It is. Meno's good. It's good. What is virtue a matter of nature, human nature, or do humans have to learn virtue?
It's teachable.
Good stuff. Well, okay. I think I'm here, Micah, his amp rolling up.
Indeed. Where is that? No, yeah, that's Mike.
Interested in growing your ancient language skills but not sure where to start? Glow's House can help. From illustrated readers and short stories to lexicons and grammars, Glossa House offers a variety of resources for beginning, intermediate, and experienced ancient language learners. Head to glossahouse.com today. Glossa House, language resources for the global community.